What's the hardest punch or kick you've received?
The hardest punch I received was from a guy named Sugar Rashad Evans. He caught me with an overhand right. It was the same exact punch he punched Chuck Liddell with. It wasn't that he hit me so hard, it was the speed of the punch. I mean, you can tighten up and or you can just let your arm hang loose and just let it swing, almost like an overhand slap. Bro, he hit me so fast, I had no clue what it was. He just caught me right at the edge of my chin, and I remember my feet came out from underneath me, and I couldn't control my legs, and I refocused, and I was able to stand. That was by far the fastest I've ever been hit, and thank God I didn't become unconscious, but I should have been.
I looked at his wife, I looked at his kids, I looked at everything. I looked at everything and who he was and how he lived his life. And I followed him all the way until the fight. Everything he said, everything he did, anything anybody said about him. And I dialed in exactly who he was.
You're not that important, Dominic.
Man, we'll see how important I am when you're on your back, though.
But you're a pawn in this game, bro. Like DC, all of them, bro. You're a pawn in this game. I'm trying to be great, bro, and you're just a part of it. Everyone's undefeated before they fight me, bro. You're not special, Dominic.
Dominic Reyes just broke Jon Jones' mind. And I'm not talking about some regular pre-fight trash talk or typical psychological games. This was a complete mental demolition that changed the trajectory of one of the greatest careers in MMA history. While most fighters spend their camps working on cardio and drilling takedown defense, Reyes was doing something completely different. He was studying Jon Jones like a F***ing PhD dissertation. Every interview Jones ever gave, every facial expression during face-offs, every pattern of behavior inside and outside the octagon. Reyes built this comprehensive psychological profile of the greatest light heavyweight of all time, and then he weaponized it. This wasn't just confidence or belief in himself. This was calculated mental warfare designed to plant seeds of doubt in a champion who hadn't felt vulnerable in over a decade. And here's the crazy part. It worked better than anyone could have imagined.
Press conference, he realized I wasn't just a guy that he could just run over, and he thought he was going to do that. And then he started talking to me and hearing me talk and hearing my conviction and hearing my journey and how convinced I was that I'm going to beat you.
Let him have it. Let the kid have it, Jon. You've had a great career. You've done a lot of great things. This kid, he wants it. He's hungry for it. Jon, it's okay. It's okay if you come up short in this one. Just don't let him knock you out. And then I thought about that. It's a decision to give up on yourself. And something just as clear as that other voice.
So when these two finally face off, you can see the exact moment Jones realizes this isn't going to be another easy night at the office. Reyes wasn't just talking for the cameras or trying to sell pay-per-view buys with generic fighter banter. Every word he spoke carried this genuine conviction that you could literally feel through the screen. Jones later admitted he had this internal voice telling him to let him have it and unleash everything. Think about that for a second. This is a guy who's dismantled legends without breaking a sweat, and now he's having internal conversations about whether he needs to go full savage mode. That's not the mindset of a confident champion cruising to another victory. That's the mindset of someone who's been mentally shaken before the fight even started. Reyes had already won the psychological battle, and Jones knew it. The crack in the armor was showing, and everyone could see it.
Not you, not today. And I decided, I just made the decision. Maybe you're going to win this one, but you're going to have to fight me. But we got, 23 minutes left? Yeah, we're going to have to fight. And we ended up getting that hand raised.
After a close fight with Dominic Reyes, Jones' dominance starts to look uncertain.
Going into the last round, I had Dominic Reyes 3-1 going into the last round.
At the same time, Francis is back on a knockout streak, so Jones calls out Francis.
Is Jon Jones going to go in and fight Francis Ngannou?
But here's where everything gets absolutely wild. The Reyes fight didn't just test Jones physically, it completely shattered his aura of invincibility. For the first time in his legendary career, Jones fought a genuinely contested battle where half the MMA world thought he actually lost. The decision was controversial as hell, with fans and analysts arguing about it for months. Some people are still arguing about it today. And then, almost immediately after this fight, Jones starts calling out Francis Ngannou for a heavyweight superfight. Now, was this a genuine desire to test himself at heavyweight, or was this a strategic move to shift attention away from the light heavyweight division, where his mystique had just been seriously questioned? It honestly felt like a champion who, after being truly tested for the first time, was looking for a completely fresh narrative. Something that would put distance between him and the uncomfortable truth of what just happened against Reyes.
Jones asked for an unprecedented amount of money.
Told my lawyer he wants what Deontay Wilder was paid. I think it was $30 million. And for the amount of money he's asking for, it's not going to happen.
In response, Jon Jones vacates the light heavyweight title.
He dropped a bombshell on us. Where do we go with Jon Jones from here? I mean, it sounds like heavyweight's inevitable at this point.
Yeah, when he's ready to fight, he'll let us.
Now here's where the money starts talking louder than legacy. Right after the Reyes fight, Jones begins demanding these absolutely unprecedented amounts of cash for his next fights. We're talking numbers that would make Floyd Mayweather proud, the kind of money usually reserved for boxing superstars, not MMA fighters. When the UFC wouldn't meet his financial demands, Jones made the shocking decision to vacate the light heavyweight title and disappear for 3 years. 3 years. Think about this for a second. This wasn't just a simple contract dispute over a few $100,000. Had Jones' belief in his own invincibility been so fundamentally shaken by Reyes that he now needed a record-breaking payday to justify taking any risks in the octagon? Or was this whole thing a calculated way to avoid potential losses while waiting for the perfect heavyweight opportunity? Either way, the division moved on without him. New champions were crowned, and his entire career trajectory was forever altered by this decision to step away right when questions about his dominance were at their loudest.
Decision for the UFC in recent memories.
This seems to be a shock to everybody, including Francis Ngannou.
It was shocking and funny at the same time.
I responded to his manager. He was saying we were shocked by this. I said, that's a bunch of bullshit. You knew this was coming if we didn't get a deal done.
What's bothering me is the fact that to promote that fight, they were trying to discredit me and pretend like...
If you don't want to fight, no problem. Fly around the world, go on vacations, and do whatever the hell you want.
And get this, while Jones is sitting on the sideline demanding massive paydays, the UFC starts playing hardball with Francis Ngannou in the most brutal way possible. They book an interim title fight and publicly blast Francis for supposedly not wanting to fight, claiming he just wanted to go on vacation. The promotional machine went into full attack mode, completely discrediting the scariest heavyweight on the planet for not taking a short-notice fight. Jones, having just navigated his own contentious negotiations, had to be watching this whole situation unfold with serious interest. It was like watching the UFC send a message to every fighter about what happens when you demand too much or step out of line. This had to reinforce Jones' own cautious approach to his career decisions and made that potential Francis superfight even more complicated from both a business and promotional standpoint. The power dynamics were crystal clear, and nobody was safe from the UFC's narrative control.
The contract says that, not me.
Okay, so contract will be over December of 2022.
Time was now on Francis's side. His contract is about to expire.
Will it be a priority to get that done quickly, you think, as fast as you can?
Yeah. I want to get it done as soon as possible.
The UFC starts throwing millions at Francis.
We offered Francis a deal that would have made him the highest paid heavyweight in the history of the company. More than Lesnar, more than anybody.
But Francis wasn't just going to roll over and accept whatever the UFC offered. This dude understood his leverage better than most fighters ever have, and he used it like a master chess player. By understanding the 5-year clause in his contract and how it limited the UFC's options, Francis effectively put time on his side. The promotion started throwing millions upon millions at him in increasingly desperate attempts to keep him. We're talking about a deal that would have made him the highest-paid heavyweight in UFC history, with numbers that would have absolutely shattered previous records. This entire negotiation was playing out in public while Jones was still on the sideline, supposedly preparing for his heavyweight debut. The financial bar for heavyweight superfights had just been set impossibly high by Francis negotiations. Jones had to be looking at these numbers thinking either, I need to get paid like that too, or holy sh*T, how am I going to justify my own massive demands now?
It's finally back. Jon Jones taking on Cyril Gane in the vacant, undisputed heavyweight title.
The greatest fighter that the UFC has ever seen is...
I can't ever remember energy like that when an athlete hit the stage. Shades of Conor McGregor. And of course, we have the consensus greatest of all time now fighting for that prize.
It's time!
To even compare Francis Ngannou or Cyril Gane to Jon Jones, you can't even compare him to this guy. Anybody deny this guy is the GOAT anymore? I don't think anybody would deny it. Not only is he the greatest light.
After 3 long years of this weird limbo where nobody knew what the hell was happening with his career, Jon Jones finally returned to the octagon at UFC 285 against Ciryl Gane. The hype surrounding this return was absolutely insane, with commentators practically ready to crown him the greatest heavyweight of all time before he'd even thrown a punch in the division. This comeback against Gane, who was skilled but definitely not the most dangerous heavyweight available, felt like a perfectly calculated strategic move. It was designed to erase the memory of that controversial Ray's decision and rebuild his aura of invincibility in spectacular fashion. And it worked. Jones looked incredible, finishing Gane with a submission that reminded everyone why he's considered one of the GOATs. But even with this impressive performance, the shadow of fights that never happened still loomed large over his legacy. The Francis fight everyone wanted to see was still out there, and new threats like Tom Aspinall were starting to make serious noise in the division.
You're the greatest heavyweight of all time, and that's what I want.
But what the world really wants is a fight between Jones and Francis.
Do you have a response to Francis Ngannou referring to himself?
Francis is a big old put.
I want to announce you that I'm officially partnering up with the PFL. This is the best business decision I have ever done.
PFL's going to pay this guy to train for a boxing match that may not even happen and that they might not even be involved in. How does that make any sense?
With this move, the PFL and its founder, Don Davis, send a clear signal to every single UFC fighter.
I'm a top fighter.
Here's the kicker, though. The entire MMA world, every fan, every analyst, everybody wanted Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou. That was the ultimate heavyweight superfight that would have answered every question about who the real baddest man on the planet was. But instead of making this dream fight happen, Francis parts ways with the UFC entirely and signs with the PFL, effectively killing any realistic possibility of that matchup ever happening. This development perfectly showcases the dramatic shift in heavyweight MMA post-raise. Jones' long layoff and his massive money demands, combined with Francis' own legitimate frustrations with UFC pay and treatment, meant that the biggest fight in heavyweight history slipped through everyone's fingers. Fans around the world were left wondering whether Jones' newfound selectiveness about opponents, possibly born from that Ray's scare, contributed to missing out on facing the scariest heavyweight when it actually mattered most.
Yeah, I mean, it's life-changing.
That's the bullshit publicly that people believe, but that's not the truth.
Okay, so he would have made more.
Total,
okay.
total bullshit. He would have made more money if he stayed in the UFC. So he didn't want to fight Jon Jones. That's a fact.
Everyone said he was an idiot for walking away from the UFC, and now all of a sudden he's a genius, isn't he? Guy's about to make $10 million. Come on!
Dana White publicly stated that Francis didn't want to fight Jon Jones, which is a claim that a lot of people seriously questioned. Whether this is actually true or just promotional spin designed to protect Jones' reputation, it reinforces the narrative that getting Jones in the cage with the most dangerous heavyweights became this monumental task filled with obstacles and excuses. The constant negotiations, the unprecedented financial demands, the perceived avoidance of certain matchups, it all pointed to a champion who, after being pushed to his limits by Ray's, became incredibly selective about his opposition. This led to widespread frustration among hardcore fans who felt like they were being robbed of the superfights they deserved to see. Questions started swirling about whether the old Jon Jones would have been so hesitant to face anyone, anywhere, anytime. The hunger seemed different. The willingness to take risks had clearly changed after Ray's showed him he was human.
Whether or not you would fight Tom Aspinall. That's conversations to have with Dana and Hunter. We have some negotiating to do. And if everything goes right, maybe we'll give you guys what you want to see.
From day one, I've been confident that Jon Jones would do that fight.
I would love to fight Jon Jones, mate. Fight Jon Jones for it, that would be pretty cool. I want to fight Jon Jones, man.
Hey, I'm not going to do this, Henry. You don't want to do it? No, because it's going to be an Aspinall fest. I'm not going to. Let's go.
Would you guarantee 100% we see that fight?
Hold up, because now Tom Aspinall enters the picture as the legitimate, hungry, incredibly dangerous interim heavyweight champion who's been absolutely tearing through the division like a man possessed. This dude represents everything that makes Jones uncomfortable in this new phase of his career. Young, hungry, explosive, and with absolutely nothing to lose. The pressure starts mounting for Jones to unify the titles and face this next generation of heavyweight talent. But once again, we see the same pattern emerge that's defined Jones' post-Ray's career: delays, extended negotiations, and reluctance to engage with legitimate threats without perfect circumstances. The conversations with Dana White and Hunter Campbell become these drawn-out affairs filled with demands and conditions. It's like watching a different fighter entirely from the young Jon Jones who used to take on legends just because they were there. The risk aversion that started with the Rays scare had clearly become a defining characteristic of how he approached potential opponents.
Aspinall.
I'll see you guys later.
That's it.
He gave them a price tag. He said, I'll do it for this number.
What number?
I believe it's in the $30 million range. They eventually got to the $30 million. Jon said he was in.
Jon Jones was offered the deal and accepted the deal.
Does that mean Jon Jones has agreed?
I don't think so, but I think I don't know what in all honesty, Jon Jones is like, nobody knows what he's doing, even the UFC.
But he hasn't signed a contract there.
And somehow this whole situation gets even more ridiculous. Jon Jones puts a $30 million price tag on fighting Tom Aspinall. $30 million. That's not a negotiation. That's a number designed to be rejected. But here's where it gets crazy. Reports suggested the UFC actually agreed to meet this astronomical demand that would have shattered every previous record in MMA history. Then suddenly, there's confusion about what Jones actually wants, what his real intentions are, and whether he's even serious about fighting anymore. The endless back-and-forth negotiations that go absolutely nowhere become the story instead of the fights themselves. It really shows how the mental toll of the Rays fight, combined with an understandable desire for financial security, led Jones down this path where record-breaking paydays became more important than simply facing the next challenge because it was there. The old Jon Jones fought for legacy and to prove he was the best. This version seemed to fight only for life-changing money.
And then 2 days later, 3 days later, whatever, he said, nah, on second thought, I'm out. And once he said he was out, he was never back in.
It's done, but it's not done.
There is nowhere that you can find publicly, nowhere, him saying that he will fight me.
If there were to be a fight legacy worth it, it would be Alex Pereira.
Do you have a cut-off point in your mind of when to get that?
No, it's going to happen. It's. I guarantee you, this fight's going to happen. This fight's going to happen. Fight's going to happen.
Not a chance. I will retire Jon Jones without even fighting him.
Jon Jones called us last night and retired. Jon Jones is officially retired. Tom Aspinall is the heavyweight champion of the UFC.
And here's what might be the final chapter of this whole post-Rays saga. Jones apparently accepts a deal to fight Aspinall, with contracts ready to be signed, and then suddenly says, actually, I'm out. I'm done. Leading to this shocking retirement announcement that nobody saw coming, with Tom Aspinall being declared the undisputed heavyweight champion in his absence. This erratic behavior, this final refusal to fight the legitimate contender who had earned his shot fair and square, really represents what many see as the most disappointing end to a legendary career. The relentless fire that defined early Jon Jones, when he was running through legends like they were amateur fighters, seemed to have been extinguished by what the Rays fight revealed about his own vulnerability. We're left with a champion who, after one too many close calls and moments of doubt, ultimately chose to walk away rather than face the toughest challenges head-on the way he used to without hesitation. So there you have it. One fight against Dominic Reyes didn't just test Jon Jones, it fundamentally changed the entire trajectory of his career and legacy. From that moment of psychological warfare to the 3-year layoff, the massive money demands, the missed super fights, and ultimately walking away from Tom Aspinall, we watched one of the greatest fighters of all time become a completely different person. This isn't just about wins and losses. This is about what happens when an unstoppable force meets the reality of their own mortality. The question is, was this the inevitable evolution of a smart businessman protecting his legacy, or did we witness the mental breakdown of a champion who never recovered from being truly tested for the first time? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the old Jon Jones would have handled the Aspinall situation differently? If this breakdown helped you understand how one fight can change everything, smash that like button, subscribe for more MMA deep dives, and hit the notification bell because the fight game never stops delivering wild stories like this one. I'll see you in the next one. But wait, because there's something even more fascinating that most people completely missed in this entire saga. While everyone was focused on Jones' retirement announcement and Aspinall becoming the undisputed champion, there was this underlying pattern that reveals just how deep the psychological damage from the Rays fight actually went. Look at every single decision Jones made after that controversial night. The heavyweight move, the money demands, the cherry-picked comeback fight against gain, even the retirement itself. Every single choice can be traced back to a man who discovered he wasn't as untouchable as he thought he was. This wasn't just about avoiding tough fights or chasing bigger paydays. This was about a fighter who had built his entire identity around being unbeatable, suddenly realizing that identity was more fragile than anyone imagined. Think about this for a second. Jon Jones spent over a decade making other fighters question themselves before they even stepped into the octagon. He was the master of mental warfare, the guy who could break opponents psychologically before the first bell rang. But Dominic Reyes flipped that script completely and used Jones' own tactics against him with surgical precision. The student didn't just become the teacher, he became the F***ing professor. And once that mental barrier was broken, once Jones experienced what it felt like to be on the receiving end of that psychological pressure, he could never quite get back to that place of absolute confidence. It's like watching a magician who accidentally reveals his own trick and then can never perform with the same conviction again. Here's where it gets really wild, though. The ripple effects of this psychological shift didn't just impact Jones, it changed the entire landscape of two divisions. Light heavyweight moved on without him and found new stars, new storylines, new champions who brought fresh energy to the weight class. Meanwhile, heavyweight became this weird limbo where the most dangerous fights kept getting delayed or avoided entirely. Francis leaves for the PFL, Tom Aspinall gets stuck in interim champion hell, and fans are left wondering what could have been. One controversial decision against Reyes literally reshaped the entire upper echelon of the UFC. That's the kind of butterfly effect that nobody talks about but completely changes the trajectory of the sport itself. But here's what really makes this story legendary. The timing of everything was absolutely perfect from a psychological perspective. Jones was at that age where Father Time starts whispering in every fighter's ear, where the recovery takes a little longer and the motivation becomes harder to find. The Reyes fight happened right at that crucial moment when those internal doubts were probably already starting to creep in naturally. Reyes didn't just plant seeds of doubt, he planted them in soil that was already fertile for questioning and second-guessing. It's like he identified the exact moment when a champion was most vulnerable to psychological warfare and struck with laser precision. The fact that Jones never quite looked the same mentally after that fight isn't a coincidence. It was inevitable once those doubts took root. And let's be brutally honest about something that nobody wants to say out loud. The Jon Jones who fought Shogun Rua for the title as a 23-year-old savage would have laughed at Tom Aspinall's challenge and signed the contract immediately just to prove a point. That version of Jones fought anybody, anywhere, anytime because he genuinely believed he was untouchable. But the post-Reyes version, that guy needed perfect circumstances, record-breaking paydays, and multiple backup plans before even considering a dangerous fight. The hunger was replaced by calculation, the fearlessness was replaced by risk assessment, and the killer instinct was replaced by business decisions. This isn't necessarily wrong, it's just completely different from the fighter who made us fall in love with his dominance in the first place. You know what the craziest part is, though? Dominic Reyes probably doesn't even realize the full scope of what he accomplished that night. He didn't just give Jones his toughest fight. He fundamentally altered the psychology of one of the greatest fighters who ever lived. Every subsequent decision Jones made, from the heavyweight move to the retirement announcement, can be traced back to those 5 rounds where Reyes showed him mortality. It's like watching someone accidentally discover the cheat code to break down a seemingly invincible video game boss, except this was real life, and the consequences lasted for years. Reyes became the answer to a question nobody knew they were asking. What happens when you successfully get inside Jon Jones' head? The most mind-blowing aspect of this whole situation is how it reveals the incredible fragility of confidence at the highest levels of competition. We're talking about a guy who dismantled legends like Daniel Cormier, Alexander Gustafsson, and Lyoto Machida without breaking a mental sweat. But one night of genuine adversity, one fight where victory wasn't guaranteed from the opening bell, and suddenly everything changed. It shows you just how much of elite-level fighting is mental, and how quickly that mental edge can disappear once doubt creeps in. Jones went from being the hunter to feeling like the hunted, and once you experience that shift in mindset, it's almost impossible to go back to the way things were before. This whole saga also exposes something fascinating about legacy management in modern MMA. The old-school approach was simple: fight whoever they put in front of you and let your record speak for itself. But Jones pioneered this new model where protecting your legacy becomes just as important as building it. The strategic retirement, the carefully selected comeback opponent, the financial demands that price out dangerous fights. It's all designed to control the narrative and minimize risk to an already established reputation. Whether you love it or hate it, Jones showed other champions a completely different way to approach the end of their careers. The question is whether this calculated approach actually protects legacy, or if it tarnishes it by making fighters appear afraid of legitimate challenges. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night thinking about this whole story. What if the Ray's fight judges had scored it differently? What if that controversial decision had gone the other way, and Jones had actually lost the belt that night? Would we have seen a more motivated, hungrier version of Jon Jones fighting his way back to the title? Or would the psychological damage have been even worse, leading to an earlier retirement without the heavyweight experiment at all? The sliding doors moment of that decision might have been the difference between Jones going out on his shield like a warrior or gradually fading away as a businessman. We'll never know for sure, but it's fascinating to think about how different this entire timeline could have been with 3 different scorecards. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why the Dominic Reyes fight will go down as one of the most important fights in MMA history, even though most casual fans probably don't even remember it happening. It wasn't just a fight. It was the moment when the greatest light heavyweight of all time discovered he was human. Everything that came after, from the heavyweight move to the retirement announcement, was just the slow-motion aftermath of that psychological earthquake. Reyes didn't just test Jones physically for 5 rounds. He broke something inside him that could never quite be fixed. The ripple effects are still being felt today, and they'll probably continue shaping the sport for years to come. That's the power of mental warfare when it's executed perfectly against someone who thought they were untouchable.